sitting and she's giggling with her mother-in-law. And when Jaya says, अपने पसंद की ये कमल ककड़ी की सब्जी बनाओ, I said, क्या अब औरतों का पसंद का खाना बनेगा? For her, it's something very new. And this idea, and Kiran Rao has put it in the most subtle fashion, that it is new for them. And she goes on and she realizes, and she goes on and says कि घर की औरतें सास नंद सब बन जाती हैं, सहेली नहीं बन पाती एक दूसरे की. And her mother-in-law jokingly adds, कि क्या अब हम सहेली बने? And then she says, okay, let's try. But even prior to that scene, once Deepak comes with the wrong wife, and the aarti thing is going to happen, and then the mother-in-law says कि एक मन्नत का घी का दिया लगाओ. So there is a kind of a nook which goes on. It's not at all bitter. What Kiran Rao has also done is that these are not stereotypical women that we see on largely on cinema, that the Nand has to be really bad, or the Jethani has to be nasty, or the mother-in-law and the mother-in-law's mother-in-law. Everyone is like, they are comfortable with each other. They have their problems, because if the dadi wants to do the aarti, the mother doesn't like it, and ultimately acha tum hi kar lo, and then she says हाँ uske karte karte to aap mar jayenge, aap hi kar lijiye. So it is, that element of humor is there, but that realism is overpowering. It is not it doesn't, it doesn't blow out of proportion at anything. The high point is definitely the language of the film. Ladies, we've discussed.
Can I comment here for a while?
Yes,
Just
yes.
about the issues like fraud, gongat, bail. On one hand, these are the genuine realities that deserve artistic exploration. But on the other, we have a poverty porn debate about India, that why Slumdog Millionaire at that time. What are we celebrating actually when Slumdog Millionaires went to Oscars and now Lapataa Ladies? Is it that the West's valid criticism that Western audience often reward Indian films that confirm their pre-existing notions, I mean white man's burden, about India, like poverty, oppression? So how to maintain that balance, that we are showing progress, we are showing change, and we are showing our genuine social realities? How would you address this?
See, I know this criticism is always there, that films like Salam Bombay Go or Slumdog Millionaire is also there, or even Lagan for that matter when it went. However, this is a part of the society. And if we say we as a society is also changing, and things are being depicted, but in Lapata Ladies, you do not have a very stereotypical notion of poverty. And it's not so poverty all the time. And it's not a hard-hitting fight for survival kind of a thing. So, I mean, I don't think we can be comparing Slumdog or Salam Bombay with Lapata Ladies. But and when these films are being sent for the Oscars, it's not that they are choosing it. It's our board which is deciding and sending it across, isn't it?
I also want to come in here,
Yeah.
that when we are talking, this is also artistic creation. I mean, where is the license that you're giving then for freedom there? So somewhere along the line, and here it's an interpretation of a reality which, we need to, it's not something that we want to hide and be shameful about. And very honestly, when we talk about patriarchy and the way it's manifest, it's there in the West as well and in Western societies, but the manifestation is different. So, if we want to just look at the attire and say that this is the way it's projected, and, we are downplaying our own society, there's an issue there. Somewhere we need to be, fine, we are projecting it. The fact that we are discussing it, I think, is important. And that it's going, there must be some sense in, it going for Oscars. I remember there being a dialogue, that there being a whole dialectic, which my mother told me about, was when Satyajit Ray's films were going. Nargis, as a Rajya Sabha member, had made a point that, he's trying to sell up poverty abroad. And these are issues which will always remain. So somewhere along the line, we need to, put this in perspective and just look at artistic freedom here in that sense of the term. So it's not as if we are trying to glorify or underplay anything. And that's important. And the fact that we are freely doing that, I think, shows there's a movement there and there's a dynamic there. So I don't know if you concur with that, Saba, but yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I completely agree with what you're saying, and that's what I'm saying. And these films are chosen by our own people. It's not that they pick it up. So we pick it up from a pool, and absolutely the artistic freedom, and we cannot negate that certain things are happening in the country, and they have to be talked about and made films into. And Howard, thank you for the question. Because not only it opens another dimension, but also it breaks the monotony. So the next slide is also on language, and we talk about how certain words, when I mean, the favorite character of the film, we've not talked about him till now, Ravi Kisan. I mean, he takes the cake, and he's done the most fabulous job of his own career, I think. So, he's perpetually cracking a joke. And I remember once I had watched an interview where he says, it's very difficult to play a character, someone who's chewing pan all the time, because, because on screen it's Amitabh Bachchan who does that, and you don't want to look like him. So he had to keep in mind that he had to look himself and not try and imitate Mr. Bachchan. So he's a character who's cracking jokes. And Dubey ji jo unke ek wo the sub inspector or something, he says, sir majak like karte hain. So again, the word majak is like, it's a mazak is majak, and like karte hain. So this idea about using of these, how the conversation in the rural belt at Nirmal Pradesh, as this fictional town, which is the fictional state which is there, how the sentences are peppered with these English words, majak like karte hain. And this is also talks about the struggle and the idea of to look better or to sound cool, where they struggle to speak English, Deepak. And I think that's the most beautiful and the most romantic scene of the film, where he's struggling to impress his newly wedded wife, and he says, कि हम English बोल कर बताएं, कल हम कूलर के मोटर में बाइंडिंग करा के आए. So and he said, and with the struggle that he does that, and then he later on he really struggles even further to say I love you. And the idea of being able to speak in English is a benchmark where they want to read. And another point about going beyond English is, again, Manjumai's line, कि तुम्हारी अम्मा ने तुम्हें बुड़बक बनाया है. Now, burbak is again a word from the rural belt, and where you're thinking about, I don't know, burbak would be kisi layak nahi, when you can't even think of yourself, or you don't know what to decide. And burbak comes later on. It's again used again towards the end of the film by Ravi Kisan as Inspector Shyam Manohar, where he says, ye sab burbak hai. So these are people who are maybe very simpletons, who don't know. And Manjumai uses it for Phool over here. It's like, I mean, you don't know the ways of the world. You're not street smart at all. I mean, you know how to live within the house, but you can't survive for yourself. So you are good for nothing. कि तुम्हारी अम्मा ने तुम्हें बुड़बक बनाया. So, and she's not blaming the girl. She's blaming that you've not been brought up well. Again, connection to the conditioning that we were talking earlier. Another aspect throughout the film is like it has extremely idiomatic references. When they're going to the thana. So Deepak's father says, "Thane mein samasya batao, haisiyat nahi." He said, "Ghadi utaro, kameez badlo." You realize that this is a lot of people who are not educated, but wisdom has got nothing to do with some degree. So these are very wise people. So he says, samasya batao, haisiyat nahi, because he knows कि अगर वो हैसियत बताई तो the police wala will expect some kind of a bribe, and which he was absolutely correct. And even in the beginning, when Deepak tells Phool ki na zevar utar ke rakh lo, because I mean, if you lose the jewelry, that's one issue. Usse badi musibat hai thana. So they have that apprehension of going to the police station, of the police officers, of the life in a thana. It's about, अच्छे लोग नहीं जाते हैं थाने में. So that idea. But throughout the film, you find n number of idiomatic references and how things go on. Again, this is something that we've been talking about at length, about patriarchy. But again, as I've been saying, that at the cost of repeating myself, it's not in the face patriarchy. It's most subtle. So, like for example, when Jaya has come here mistakenly, and when Deepak's father asks something about something, and then she responds. So the moment she speaks, everyone is in a state of shock, and that element of shock, and they're confused, and they're further shocked when she tells the name of her husband. There is a long thing ki Mia ka naam nahi lena hai, till finally you see when Phool calls out at the station Deepak. So she is also evolved, and of course marriage, education, dowry. I mean, something as important as painful as dowry, here the filmmaker and her team has brought in forth in a most humorous manner. Jaya's mother-in-law, that scene when that she's in the coach and she's most intrusive, and she doesn't know who this person is, Deepak, but she feels his coat and she says, कि हमारे प्रदीप को कोट इससे मतलब अच्छा सूट मिला है, and then she keeps on saying कि क्या मिला है, and there are people talking about motorcycle मिली है, mobile phone मिला है, and when Deepak does not respond, she says जरूर लड़के में खोट होगा. So if a guy is not getting a good enough dowry, so there is some problem with the guy. So we get back to our idea of conditioning, to the idea of, but this issue of dowry has, and again it keeps on recurring throughout कि ना जया को कितना जेवर मिला है, वो जेवर लड़का रखेगा कि लड़की रखेगी. So it keeps on, it's being discussed all the time. Yes, Professor Fatmi said it's a good critique on patriarchal structure and traditional gender roles, highlights women's struggles for agency and empowerment amidst societal expectations. Emphasis is on the importance of female solidarity and intersectionality in addressing the complexities of women's rights in contemporary society. Correct, sir. Absolutely, sir. This is what I was trying to sum up. Thank you. And another important aspect that comes forth is organic farming. Although I was a little confused, I was confused about the fact that had this aspect of farming, or this Jaya's idea about farming, had it been that what she wanted to open say a beauty parlor, would we have approached it in the same lens? Again, these are very speculative things, as maybe just we trying to nitpick or being very critical. But this idea about, here it is as a woman who didn't want to get married because she wanted to study more. She was a bright girl, but she was forced into marriage by her mother, by her parents and her mother largely. And the idea of, and this film is set in 2001, although it's made this year 2024, but it's, when it starts, if you notice, it's set in 2001. So that was a time when we were really talking about the organic farming was coming up at that time, and especially in India. So here we are, that we are talking about how things were, and there's Kiran Rao has managed to bring in another aspect. And the film has only sailed through because of the humor that it has. Right from the beginning, when it's, Shubh din shadi karke sab Shankar Parvati ban jate hain. So it's just like people are saying these sentences in jest, but all these sentences are powerful sentences. Like Jay is talking to Phool's sister-in-law, her bhabhi, गूंगा औरत से शादी करने के लिए बहुत हिम्मत चाहिए, because she remains so quiet, she doesn't speak. So, and then all of a sudden the poor woman, she says, नहीं हम बोलते हैं, and then says, then why don't you speak, kind of a thing. But instead of just saying कि आप बोला करिए, there is this element of humor throughout. I mean, if we start pulling out the dialogues which has humor in it, I mean, we'll only have and again, once Deepa goes to the police station, he says, कि मेरी बीवी खो गई है. So now the police inspector is most funny. He says, कैसे खोई? हम तो कब से कोशिश कर रहे हैं. And later on he says, कि मतलब तुम तो इतने बढ़िया हो कि तुम्हारी खो गई हो, तुम दूसरे की भी उठा लाए हो. So at something as a situation as grave as that, or in the end, once Jaya goes away and she says, नहीं लड़की बहुत दूर जाएगी. So Dubey ji has to quip in, and he says, हाँ, Dehradun 800 kilometer दूर है. So even he laughs. So the idea for inclusion of this element of humor is that you sugarcoat the most important things and you present it. It becomes even more palatable. People enjoy it, and you look at all the issues which come through. I think that was the last slide. Yes.
डॉक्टर सबा, इवन द कंसेंट देयर दैट वो नहीं जाना चाहती तो वो नहीं जाएगी
Yes.
कि that.
Absolutely. So he closes the case, and then he takes his bribe also, and then he says, that case is closed, and but the idea of that she's an adult, wo balik hai, and then she says that she would not go. I think there are a couple of comments. Aparna Dikshit has written, though the film raises the issues of women empowerment in terms of mobility, marginality, and modernity, but I find there is sanitized treatment of rural reality, which is problematic, and it could be because of looking at reality from a distance. Absolutely. I also thought so. There were certain things which were very, in the sense they were artificial, and they did not feel very real, and it looked like one was looking at a distance, which was true. Professor
Can I just
Yes, yes.
yeah, just a quick question because it's over. Dr. Saba, first of all, it was a very interesting discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And you very effectively spoiled a lot of movies.
Thank you.
So, Lapataa, I'm Dr. Amina from Sarojini Naidu Center. And Lapataa Ladies is more like, Shakespearean comedy of errors centered on mistaken identity. And this whole, it happens through this whole concept of veiling that comes and how it has been, there's been a calibrated concealment. So the two ladies, the way they use this veiling to, in the case of Jaya and Pool, for example, Pool, we see she's trapped because of that, they're like body doubles because of the ghungat. And then we see Jaya, how effectively she uses veiling to get out of the bad marriage. So do you think, I want you to comment on this, and also cinematically there is one scene in the movie where this guy Manohar is just, he has one wedding photograph, where he's just roaming everywhere and asking if, you've seen my wife, and the wife is completely in ghungat. So obviously her face, her identity. So there is a comment that says that, the face is the only identity and there is no face here. So then immediately thereafter, there is this image of a burqa clad woman that appears, and it evokes a lot of laughter. It just, you end up laughing, after that comment, you see this image. And then I want you to reflect on, how is this, I mean, is it used as a comic relief? What does it speak of then the narrative of the wailing, as how Kiran Rao, do you think it's too simplistic? I mean, I just want to hear your comments.
Yeah. I mean, see, Jaya is a very bright woman. The moment she gets off the train, she knows that she's with the wrong guy. But she carries on because she knows the kind of a man that she's married into. So she willingly keeps on going ahead because she did not want to go back. So you're right when you say that, she's taking it for her betterment and she's using it. But about that Nakapoy Sahiba, I don't think it's a comic relief. The veil is a comic relief at any point in the film. As I was saying, the humor in the film is only sugarcoating the important things, so that it's a pill that we take it in. With the humor, it's easy to take in. Otherwise, if it becomes very preachy, where you're only talking about certain things. So you take it in, you understand, and you ponder over it, you reflect over it, you keep on thinking about it. And the Nakaposh woman coming is talking about, and which is also a kind of a thing that it's gone across different accounts, different stratas, different faith. So the idea of veil is not only it's for one section of the society. It goes across the strata about different faiths, different religions, different class horizons, caste horizons. So that is what is the idea, and it is just that she brings it forth. And that's the reason I did not speak a lot on the whale, because even right from the beginning, that's the most apparent thing. Ghungat is the most apparent thing. Yes, Zoiba has raised her hand.
Yeah, ma'am, my question was to be labeled as independent women, should we leave everything behind and then be labeled as independent?
See, being an independent woman is you can do what you want to do. So, and one has to be, not be a burbak, and be intelligent enough and have the strength to be. You don't have to leave behind anything and everything. So, I mean, I mean, maybe they come up with a sequel to the film where Phool is very happy with the family and she has a Kalakand ki dukan. No, she's selling that mithai that she was making. One has to be independent, and one can be independent if if they can think think for themselves, take decisions on their own.
Even the fool became determined that
Yeah.
when she meets her husband, and she will be definitely opening some new venture and
Yeah.
start earning. She took inspiration from Manju Mai.
Yeah, that's what, she can all make that Kalakant ki dukan,
And I love the way he said the fool. I don't know which fool he was talking about. But that also became a little ironic, the fool. Yeah. So
There are a couple of comments I'll just read. There's again by Professor Fatmi. Thank you, sir, for being so indulgent. He writes, it employs local Indian words and colloquial expressions to enhance authenticity and cultural resonance, reflecting the everyday realities of women in India. This linguistic choice not only fosters relatability, but also highlights the unique socio-cultural context of the characters' struggles and aspirations. Absolutely. These are the reasons. And that is why the film is so realistic in temperament. And Dr. Suraya Tabassum, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. Yeah, if we have questions, we can, if there are any more questions, we can